Hello out there from Badger Rock. Here we are for another one of our virtual workshops, and we are showing today how to make a raised bed garden for you to grow your own vegetables in. Raised beds are so great for so many reasons. If you have, back or knee issues and it's tough to bend down and get down on the ground, raised beds can be great for just giving you a little bit less to bend down, a less space to bend down, and they also create kind of a nice contained space for your garden. So if you're new to gardening too, what you pop in there, is what's going to come up. So it can be sometimes easier if you're a beginner to tell what's a vegetable, what's a weed in a raised bed, where you know what you put in there. And they are also just beautiful, and you can build a raised bed on top of anything. I've built lots of raised beds on even concrete. You can do them any size as long as you don't have a bottom on them, because they need the water from the rain and when you water them to be able to freely drain out. So you do not want a bottom on a raised bed, but you do want sides, and you can really customize it to your space. So I'm going to show you the kind of design that I came up with for raised beds. When I worked in Oakland, my work was doing a backyard garden program. So I would drive around East Oakland, West Oakland, Fremont, the Bay Area, and help people build gardens, vegetable gardens, on whatever kind of surface they had. So that's where I got my start with this. And they're easy. It's really fun. It's so satisfying to build something with your own two hands too that's useful for you, and that just adds some beauty, and it can give you a space to grow food wherever you are. So the pieces that I'm going to teach you how to build an 8x4 raised bed garden, which is about the standard size. You don't want it much more than 4 feet wide, because you want to be able to reach all the way into the middle from either side of it, so you're not struggling to reach the middle. And about 8 feet long is about as long as you want to get before you would have to start adding some supports to the inside to hold the wood together so it doesn't bow out. So 4x8 is about perfect if you don't want to mess with any kind of reinforcement, and if you want to be able to reach all the sides of your garden. So for building an 8x4 bed, what you're going to need is some 8-foot long pieces of wood. I like to use 2x10s because they're a little taller than a 2x8, but you could use a 2x8 as well. It just would be a little bit of a shorter board and give you a little bit of a shorter garden. You can build raised beds that are one board high. The benefit of a one board high raised bed is you don't need as much soil to fill it. The benefit of a 2 boards high raised bed is you have even less area that you need to bend to reach your garden, and you can add more soil, so you can fit some deep rooting crops in there, and they will be so happy. So here at Badger Rock, we build what we call double high raised beds, which means 2 boards. So you're going to need some 8-foot 2x10s, or 2x8s will be fine, and some 3 feet 9 inch 2x10s is what we have over here. So for a garden, for one raised bed that is 2 boards high, you're going to need 4 8-foot boards, 2 for each of the long sides, and 4 3 foot 9 inch boards, 2 for each of the short sides. You're also going to need some 4x4s. 4x4s are really for the corners. They kind of hold the whole thing together. And the last piece of wood you're going to need is just a piece of 2x10 or 2x8, whatever size board you're working with, that is about as tall as your garden bed is going to be, and that is to hold the boards together. If you're doing just a 1 board tall garden bed, you don't need to worry about this piece because you don't have boards to hold together. So other stuff you're going to need, you will need a drill and a 1/2 inch bit. You will need, you don't need, but it really helps to have an impact driver. You can also borrow these from a friend. Everyone doesn't have to have their own impact driver. So if you know folks who do woodworking, you can borrow tools also. You're going to need a drill bit that fits wood screws. So you want to get some outdoor screws that you're going to use to attach these connector pieces. I'll show you that in a minute. And you're going to need some lag bolts is what I like to use. These are kind of a hex style lag bolt. They're a 5/16 inch lag bolt. These are great because they have the strength of a bolt, but you use them like a screw. So with a normal bolt, you would need like a washer and a nut at one end, and you would put the bolt all the way through the wood, and it would kind of hold that wood between the nut and the washer and the head of the bolt. Lag bolts, you just put in like a screw, and they just hang out in the wood. You don't have to have a washer and a nut. They just act like a super, super strong screw. Make sure you get galvanized bolts and galvanized washers or zinc coated so that they can last outside for a long time. Also, the kind of wood I use, if you want to get a wood that's going to last a long time, go with cedar. Cedar, I will tell you, does not come in 2x10s. It comes in 2x8s. So if you want to make an extra tall bed, you might need 3 boards to do cedar. Cedar is pretty expensive, so I usually skip the cedar and go with pine or Doug fir, which is not going to last as long, but it's really pretty inexpensive, and you can build a bed that's going to last a good number of years, and then you can always replace it once it starts to fall apart. Just build a new one. You're also going to need a measuring tape and a pencil. So what we're going to do first is you would need your 2 3'9" boards, and if you're making a double high like this, what you're going to do is put them on top of your 4x4. See this guy? And this is going to be the short side of your bed. So we are going to need to measure, and the reason we need to measure is because we're going to have bolts going in this way through the short side, and then we're going to have bolts going in this way through the long side, and you don't want the bolts to bump into each other, is why we have to measure to make sure that we have the bolts going in different spots on the different sides of the bed. So for a short side, what we did was we measured 1.5 inches from the top of the board, 1.5 inches from the bottom of the board, and I just made a little caret here, and then we measured in 1 3/4 inches from the end, and then we just made a little circle. So we made a line where 1 3/4 inches was all the way across this board. So then we could just measure in, measure down 1.5 inches and up 1.5 inches, make a little circle, and that's where you're going to drill your holes. And for the short sides, the way you drill the holes is just get yourself a drill with a 1/2 inch bit, and we're just going to drill all the way through this 2x10 board. And we're going to go in through this 4x4 a little bit too. So when you put the boards on top of the 4x4 like this, when you put your drill in, you can see it's going to go into this 4x4 too. That's good. That's called a pilot hole. That's going to create like a guide for that bolt to go in, so it's not working so hard to push through wood without any help. Okay, so I have my pilot holes, they're called, drilled in through that short side. I have 2 boards together. This one is already bolted in. I'm going to show you how we add the bolts. So this is where I love to use an impact driver because it's a lot stronger than a drill. It's going to be a lot less of a struggle to get these bolts through. Oops. So you want your lag bolt and your washer, your pilot hole. I sometimes will screw it in a little bit with my finger just to get it to hold itself up. And then you are going to put your impact driver on here. This is going to be loud, so plug your ears for a minute. All right, 1 bolt in, and we're going to put a bolt on either side of the board so the board doesn't wiggle back and forth. That holds the whole board sturdy. All right. All right. So we did a little bit of this ahead of time, so now we have a finished short side right here, and I'll show you what that looks like when you lift it up. Put all my goodies over here, and I also can include the instructions in the comments, so if you all want to build this on your own, you'll have some instructions right there for you. So now we have our short side of our bed ready to go, and you could just set it up. It'll just stand itself up. Boop, like that. All right, so that's the short side, and then for the long side, I have one finished here already. You can see I held the two boards together just with two more boards. So it's really kind of a simple little hack for holding things together. And I'm going to get my bit for putting screws in here. All right. And I'm going to grab some screws, and I'm going to grab my connector board. And again, you only need a connector board if you're using 2 boards or 3 boards. If you just have 1 board high, you can skip this part completely. All it is doing is holding these 2 boards together. All right, so I'm just going to push it in a little bit here, and I'm going to connect these boards together just with 3 screws into each board. And I like to do it in kind of a diamond pattern. You can see on the other ones that are finished. So it's holding the wood in different spots. If you do the screws all in a line, it holds together in one spot and it's a little less secure. Is in here. Again, make sure that you're using outdoor screws so that they don't just disintegrate on you. Okay. All right. And what I did for the long sides too is I also made pilot holes so that we could attach the long sides to the short sides with some bolts. So I'm just going to find the measurement here so I make sure that I'm following my own instructions. All right. All right, so for the long sides, we measured the pilot holes in a different spot so those bolts don't bump into each other. So I did 2.5 inches from the top and the bottom of the board. So I just found my 2.5 inches from the top and the bottom of each board. And I just made a little caret. And then I did 3.25 inches from the edge. So you can see this is 3.25 inches right here. I made a little circle in each spot that I'm going to drill. And then I will drill my pilot hole with my 1/2 inch drill bit. And what these holes are going to be for is for the bolts. Sometimes if you have a knot in your road like this, it can be a little tricky to drill through. Okay, and then we're going to put one more connector board here together. So each long side should have 2 connector boards. Let me grab my... All right. And I usually like to put 1 screw in each board first, just to snug them up to each other, and then I'll put the other 2. All right, one more screw and this long side is done. All right, so as long as your long side has its 2 connector pieces and it's 4 pilot holes on each side, you should be ready to go. And the way that we're going to assemble this is carrying this over to the short side. So let me see what's the best way to get this. All right, cool. They do get heavy, so you might want to get a buddy. Okay. All right. And then to assemble the sides together, if you can come over here, you can see that we have our short side ready to go with the 4x4 on it, and we're going to snug this long side right up against it like that. And then these pilot holes are right where we're going to put our bolts, and those are going to go right into this 4x4 corner piece. So I'll show you how that looks. And you can get wood pre-cut. That's the easiest way to go. If you want to go to, I know Menards has a saw that you can use if you buy lumber. That's what I was doing last night. Or you can, I know that some stores will actually cut the wood for you. If you pay a little extra, they will get you a nice 8-foot board or a nice 3-foot 9-inch board. Usually you can buy wood in 8-foot boards, but for 3-foot 9-inch boards you need to cut it. And the reason we cut them 3-foot 9 inches is because if you come over here, you can see the long side of the bed. This edge of it is sticking out, and this is actually, even though this is called a 2x10, it's actually a 1.5 by 9 1/4. So you're adding 1.5 inches on either side because of this outer board, and so that makes the bed 4 feet wide. So that's why we did it 3'9". So you just I forgot to do a pilot hole. That's what happens when you don't do a pilot hole, is you struggle. Okay, so don't do what I did and make a pilot hole first. I'll show you all that. Okay. That was me doing a shortcut. Let's grab this drill. All right, perfect. So even though we already have a pilot hole through this long side, we don't have a pilot hole through this 4x4 right here. So that's why it was not happy with me. So you just want to make a little pilot hole. Go all the way through, and that will make a little hole in that 4x4 to get this bolt going. There it is. See how much easier that was? Don't forget your pilot hole. And then we would just go through and make pilot holes in the rest of them. Like so. All right. And then you would just put your bolts and your washers in the rest of these 3 holes. It snugs it up together really, really nice. And then you just put your second long side on the same way, put your second short side on the same way, and there you have a raised bed. No bottom. You shouldn't put a bottom. And you can just fill it with soil, and you are ready for planting. So we'll put the instructions for this too in the comments. And yeah, so take a look at the other side too. You can see all your handiwork if you do it. You got your 4x4s, you have your connector pieces, you have your 8-foot 2x10s, You have your 3'9" 2x10s, and you have, I should say, the 4x4s and the connector pieces are cut to be the same height as 2 boards. So that's about 18 inches. Each of those are cut for this double high bed. All right, so now that we have our 2 short sides finished and our 2 long sides finished, we have 4 lag bolts holding this 2x10 piece to the 4x4, and we have that on both sides. So now you have 2 short sides, and you can just snug them right up against this long side. And the way we're going to finish it up is put 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts into this long side, just like we did on the other side. And then we will grab our second long side and snug it right up against those 2 short sides on the other side, like so. Kind of like putting a puzzle together. All right, and then we would put 4 bolts here. We'd put 4 bolts on the other side, and there you would have it, your raised bed. So if you try this at home, let us know how it went. If you have another design that you like to use for garden beds, let us know. And happy planting, y'all.